electronics from the most extreme wrestling. And yes, it is that time again, that sad time of year. WWE has released a new batch of future endeavors. And I'll read you the official release notes from WWE.com, the primary source. WWE has come to terms on the release of Kurt Angle, Drake Maverick, Kurt Hawkins, Karl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Heath Slater, Eric Young, EC3, Aiden English, and Lio Rush. We wish them all the best in their future endeavors, and then a nice little WWE logo at the end, which I find to be kind of ridiculous. Now, we knew that these future endeavors were going to be coming around. They always do. You can't get away from them. This is a little bit of spring cleaning we got going on here. A little bit surprising on some of the names and the number of names. These shows not having any fans allowed, it's no real surprise that we're seeing people being released here in WWE at this time. You don't have the ticket revenue coming in. You have less people buying merchandise at these shows. Well, you don't have anybody buying merchandise at the shows, only at WWE Shop. So the revenues are definitely down. You're doing less shows. You're not running house shows whatsoever for Raw, SmackDown, NXT. No. Nothing. So you don't need as many wrestlers around. So this is not going to be the last of the future endeavors. Kurt Angle. It's a little surprising to see him on this list. Not that he is being released necessarily, but the fact that they grouped him together on this post I find to be strange, because Kurt Angle is a legend and a Hall of Famer. And to just put him on this list seems, I don't know, it seems a little disrespectful to me. I would have had him on a different list, even if it was for the same reason. Like, could you imagine if they had a list and you had just Drake Maverick and Kurt Hawkins and Hulk Hogan? They've all been released. It's just, I don't know, it just seems kind of weird that they would group him together like that. I would hope that Kurt Angle and WWE came to some kind of agreement, because, I mean, of course, Kurt Angle, he wasn't going to do a whole lot more, and we didn't really need him around anyways, but I would hope that they had some kind of conversation like, hey, you know, we don't really need you right now, but just throw him on here. It just seems like we picked a bunch of names out of a hat, and you're gone. Okay, Drake Maverick, that one I cannot be surprised at all with. He seems like somebody they would throw on a future endeavors. Karl Anderson and Luke Gallows, though. We saw them at WrestleMania, and I suppose that was the end of them. The Undertaker undertook them and buried them. Not buried them, you know, in typical wrestling terms, but buried them in the WWE in Undertaker's graveyard at this random building in the middle of nowhere. I don't know, because both of the guys drove to the location, so I can't imagine that it was either one of them their homes. That's a good tag team. I'm surprised they didn't have anything else for them to do. Perhaps they could go somewhere else, but I'll talk about that in just a moment, about the possibility of Luke Gallows and Karl Anderson and some of these other people, where they could go. We have Heath Slater. No big surprise. I can't imagine that Heath Slater is going to leave the WWE and then later come back and win the WWE Championship like, well, his other bandmates have done. But you never know. You never know in the world of wrestling. Eric Young, not a big surprise there. EC3, wow, this is a guy that I felt had a lot of potential, and it just was just not a lot going on there. Sucks for him. Maybe he can go back to Impact. He didn't make such an impact in WWE. Aiden English, not surprising. And Lio Rush. A lot of people surprised by this. A lot of people upset because Lio Rush, although small, is a very good talent. So where would somebody like Lio Rush go? Where would somebody like Karl Anderson, Luke Gallows, even Drake Maverick and these other guys, where could they go? Where would they go? You know, one of the reasons I would have to believe that they got released is that they just don't need the volume of personnel, and you got to make cuts somewhere, and that's where they made the cut. So if that's the case, if it's the case that it's just an issue of less revenue, then I can't see Ring of Honor picking them up. I don't even know how they could have the funds to support them. There is places like MLW, of course you have Impact, and then there is AEW. Now, this cannot be the last round of future endeavors, but could these companies just swoop these guys up? Do they even need to? I feel like AEW is really good. Sure, they could get the Revival, that would be fine. They could pick up a guy here, a guy there, but their talent pool is pretty well set, and I feel like they have a pretty good range of talent, from just the absolutely horrible hope I don't see them on television to the very good, entertaining, and great status. So unfortunately, with the things that are going on, and until we have more people, or until we can actually have people in the building, until we can have fans back inside of these buildings, I can't see any company trying to sign somebody right now, because I don't see how that could possibly make financial sense, especially when we're not 100% sure when we can have the fans back in the building. You could sign somebody and say, well, you know, maybe in 3 months, whatever, we can be back. But the thing is, when you sign these guys and you're signing them for contracts, why go through all that trouble and why pay somebody before they're going to be useful? You don't want to have a WCW situation where you have talent who are getting paid, but you can't use them on television. Now, of course, that was a different situation, and WWE wasn't paying for those contracts that were held over. But when you are paying for them, yeah, you absolutely do not want that. If these WWE releases, these future endeavors, are a sign of anything, it is a sign that WWE is taking great precaution in their financial spendings. We're going to see more of these come up in the future, and that is very unfortunate for a lot of wrestlers. That's going to mean, with WWE cutting people due to financial reasons and other wrestling companies holding off on hiring, we're going to see a lot of unemployed wrestlers, and the independent wrestling scene at this moment is virtually non-existent. There is a show here and there that is taking money and doing an online live show over the internet, but those shows are few and far between. It'll be very interesting and sad to see who else is going to be released in the future due to this situation where there's not a fan in sight. I cannot wait until we can go back to wrestling shows. And let's hope that it's sooner rather than later. I'll catch you guys next time.